This week I wanted to share something a little different. I wanted to share how I use Copilot to create new presentations, and no, Copilot's not writing my speech for me or anything like that. And in fact, this is less about the specific prompts themselves and more about sharing my process of instructions and revision and how I reuse content in Microsoft 365 to help me create my presentations. I find how everyone's different approach is very fascinating, and I'd love to hear yours too, but first, let me share mine. So I'll typically start with an idea. Let's say I've got a speaking gig coming up. I know I've got a 30-minute slot, for example, and I need to submit an abstract for consideration. And I know I want to do something around, say, for example, top 3 things to consider when rolling out Copilot. So this is where I get started. I want to turn those bulleted ideas into an abstract. So I have a saved prompt for this, which is along the lines of, I'd like help turning some ideas into an abstract. You're an expert copywriter at writing speech abstracts that drives interest, has a wide appeal, clearly outlines the takeaway values for attendees. You can take my rough ideas and draft an abstract. No need to flesh out the content at this point. It's just the abstract itself. Please give me 3 different suggestions for an engaging title and a single draft abstract, no more than a couple paragraphs long. And then I'm able to provide my actual ideas. So I clarify 30-minute session, top 3 things to consider, and I mention whatever's on my mind, like adoption is critical, secure your data estate, implement good go-forward governance, all the things I usually like to talk about. So Copilot will think about it and come back with a first draft. And you can immediately see from some of the titles, there's bits I can like, bits I don't like, bits I want to mix and match. But from that first draft abstract, it reeks of ChatGPT. Right? The stereotypical, it's not just X, it's Y, right? Rolling out Copilot is not just a technical deployment, it's a strategic opportunity. Okay, Copilot's not the expert here. We're the experts, and Copilot is like our intern helping us out to create the drafts and save us time. So this is our opportunity to take that draft, refine it, and update it. So I'll take this abstract, I'll workshop it, usually offline. I edit it in Notepad and just get my thoughts out. And then I'll eventually pass it back when I'm ready. And usually say, after reviewing the draft, I have revised it as follows so that Copilot knows what I've changed. And I can continue workshopping it in that thread, but eventually I'll get to a point where I'm happy with the abstract, it's polished, it's ready to go, and now that is what shapes the direction of the presentation itself. So maybe in the new thread, maybe in the existing thread, I'll ask, I have an upcoming speaking session and would like your help suggesting a draft presentation outline based on this abstract. And in fact, I'd like you to use as much as possible from the following existing presentations. And I have this prompt saved as a starter prompt in my gallery as well, but this is where, using this template, I can now paste in my abstract or reference it in the thread, and I can start referencing actual presentations to look at and using the / to search and reference things like other files that touch on the content. Like I recently did a presentation on 5 tips for change management, or a governance overview session, or a CIO briefing about data security. And this is a great way to ground it on the presentations that I know I've done that are relevant to this one. So here's my trick. The presentation outline it comes back with is usually pretty good, but I want to get creative as well. I don't want it all based on my past material or my past speaking engagements. So I will then ask, that's a great start. Now I want you to recreate the outline based on your own recommendations, and you don't have to reference the existing content at all, and see what comes back so I can compare. And finally, as a last step, I ask it, I'd like you to make one last draft presentation outline based on blending together the 2 options you just prepared, mixing the existing material into your fresh suggestion. And for me, this is where the gold is. Realistically, I'll look at all 3 options and take the bits I like from all of them. But usually, that third refined output is leveraging some of the creativity from Copilot, but keeping it grounded in real recommendations that I've worked on before or presented before. And that usually is where I can find my best presentation outline. Now from there, Copilot usually asks if I want to turn it into an actual presentation file, a PowerPoint file, but personally I'm much too much of a control freak around my slides to let Copilot attempt to create slides for me. So I'll do that offline. But this quick process here takes me from bulleted ideas in my head to having both a polished abstract ready to go and a pretty decent presentation draft outline too that I can use to start building out my slide deck. So just to recap what my process looks like, I use Copilot to turn my initial bulleted ideas into a draft abstract. I manually refine that so that it sounds human and it's actually correct to my intentions. I then use that correct abstract to create a draft outline from my previous presentations, then create a fresh one based on its own suggestions, and then combine the two in an intelligent way. And that's my jumping off point to creating a new presentation from scratch. Saves me a lot of time, usually uncovers some existing material that I hadn't thought of, or might suggest some new creative things for me to go and research and figure out what I want to speak about. But either way, that's how I use Copilot to create my presentation outlines, and I'd love to hear what your process is.